This is an 8-iron, and it's a dead shank.
Wow.
Way right.
Oh, takes a hop off the path.
You gotta be kidding me. Very tough pitch shot right here. You gotta hit it into the hill, one hop up and bite, and it's in.
Kind of like that.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to the Sub 70 podcast. It's February 8th. The Pebble Beach Pro-Am is just getting underway. It's always a sort of interesting weekend since Pebble Beach is an awesome course, and there's usually a pretty decent field. At least more guys are embracing it these days. But you get subjected to celebrity swing analysis from Peter Kostis and forced Bill Murray humor, which is, I think, probably died about 10 years ago as far as this event is concerned anyway. The good news is that the U.S. Open is at Pebble next year, so it'll be a good time to take a look at the course, and next year they'll have a serious field and a very, very serious tournament there, which is cool. The episode of this podcast, the interview, I should say, is with Shaun Micheel, and we are going to split our interview into 2 episodes. Really, really insightful, honest, interesting conversation with Shaun. We definitely want to thank him for taking the time to talk with us. This first episode is going to kind of be his time growing up in Memphis, playing golf, his time that he spent at Indiana University, and then his sort of beginnings on the tour and culminating with his win of the PGA Championship. Really great talk. Talks a lot about growing up, how he got into the game, his family situation, and kind of what led him to the tour as a professional golfer. The second part, which hopefully we'll release next week, talks about his career after his PGA Championship victory, and to be honest, some of his struggles and other things, whether they were golf-related, health-related, and family-related, and how he overcame those and keeps going. And we definitely are rooting for him going forward. Shaun has had a very successful PGA Tour career. He's nearing 400 career starts and has had a ton of other very close finishes, including a second-place finish to Tiger Woods at Medina. So enjoy the interview. Hit us up with any feedback through social media. All of our accounts are at golfsub70. Here's the interview.
I'm very excited this week to have PGA champion Shaun Micheel on the podcast. Shaun, thank you very much for doing this with us, and thanks for your time today.
No, hey, happy to do it.
So I noticed this year you're playing the web.com tour, kind of getting ready for the Champions Tour, which a lot of guys will do to kind of ready themselves for turning 50. My question for you is, how good is the competition out there these days? How's the experience been so far? And then are you going to be playing a full schedule on the web.com this season?
Yeah, I hope so. For people that don't really understand, there is a category on the web.com. Of course, there's multiple categories. The category that I'm playing out of, because I didn't go to the tour school, the web.com tour school, is what's called the 48-49 category, and they created this a number of years ago. And it's a category that allows players of that age, and it's all based on PGA Tour career money. So last year, being 48, I played a full schedule. I was pretty much number one in that category for the entire season. And so I played a full schedule. This year, it's going to be a little bit different because there are guys that are coming out that are 48 now that have made more PGA Tour career money. I think of like Tim Herron and Ken Duke and a couple other guys. But I have played the first 2 events. I'm going to play. I was in this week in Panama, but I didn't really feel like making the trip. And then I'm going to Bogota. So to circle back, I mean, I'm going to play a pretty full schedule if it allows for that out of that category. But the competition is pretty incredible. These young kids, I watched last year with, I would say, a lot of envy and just kind of, remembering kind of my career, how I was getting started in the game as a professional. And these kids they're ambitious and they work hard. They're excited. It's something new. And so I kind of watch from a distance and just kind of internally smile, I suppose, that of what these players have in front of them. And but they're good. They're really good. And a majority of them are really long too. So I'm getting humbled pretty quickly out there.
And then when you do turn 50, obviously you'll be playing the Champions Tour. How excited are you to get out there with those guys? And then with your major championship, are you fully exempt for the Champions Tour when you turn 50, or will you have to go to Q school or do some Monday qualifying, or are you fully exempt to go out there and play?
Yeah, no, I don't think, based on this year, I think it requires, 5 points. And they changed this system up pretty regularly. It just seems every year they seem to have to make adjustments based on certain players maybe that are coming out. So as of like today, I would not be fully exempt. There are events that I get into because of the PGA. I get in all the majors, I think. And there's a few other tournaments that I get in. And so I've kind of been having this conversation, with my manager, even though it is only January, I still have, 11 months really before I turn 50. But I'm very excited about getting out there. And I think more or less just to play golf with guys my own age, really. I've enjoyed, getting to know a lot of these young players, and I seem to get paired with them. There's really no category like they do on the PGA Tour. When they pair you up, you're either paired with a member or a non-member. And as a member, they just kind of throw you in. And so I've gotten a chance to play with a lot of young kids whom I've never played with or even met. So I'm excited about kind of a second career. It's a tough thing when you become non-exempt on the PGA Tour. And I haven't played a full schedule out there since 2011. 2012, I played a few events, and then I've played a few events scattered throughout the last few years for a lot of reasons, I suppose. But, I'm excited about the opportunity. I don't know if I'm going to go to the tour school in the first year. My manager, he represents Kenny Perry and also Steve Stricker, so I'm hoping that maybe with some of their help and even some of the some of my past performance that might help me get a few starts in my first season. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Well, I know that you grew up in Memphis and still live there. So how did you start playing golf? How did you get involved in it? Did your parents play, friends play, or how did you get involved in the game?
I started playing, I think I was 9 years old when I first started playing. My dad was a pretty good golfer and pretty much carried a single-digit handicap his entire life. And I started a course. Now, I lived on a course when I moved, when I was in the fifth grade, so I was 10 years old. I moved from one part of town out to another part of town. And I happened to move right onto the fourth green of Colonial South, which is, anybody knows, that was the old Danny Thomas Memphis Classic golf tournament where Al Geiberger shot his 59 in 1977. So I moved there in 1979. And there was a golf course across the street. Even though I lived on this one, I played at another course across the street with my dad and all of his FedEx pilot buddies. And so that's where I started the game and just practiced. And they had a Tennessee Junior Golf Academy that I started going to when I was 11. And I think I went there for 3 years. And that's really where my kind of my love of the game really started. But for the most part, I would just go out with my dad, and I really wasn't able to play with him until I was able to really hit the ball every time and really put up a decent score. For the most part, I would just go out and just drive the cart because even then there weren't a lot of players, a lot of friends my age that were even playing. So it was just a game I think it was difficult for juniors to kind of find their way into because the typical sports of baseball, football, and basketball really kind of took precedence over golf. And even though I played those other sports, I just really kind of found my passion for golf. And I think it was a way for me to spend time with my dad also. Being a pilot, he was gone a lot, and it was just a way for him to kind of spend some time with me.
So at what age then, when you start playing, does the talent and the potential start to show where you're going to be playing at the University of Indiana and that you're a top-level amateur player? At what point did that sort of show itself?
Oh God. Well, I would say probably around 13. My handicap dropped from I think a 12 to a 6 in 1 year, and that was about 12, 13, 14 probably. And then I almost missed the tryouts for my high school team. I had transitioned. I went to a public grade school, and then, my parents wanted me to go to a different high school, so I went to a school. It was Christian Brothers High School, CBHS. And it's an all-male Catholic school, and Kerry Middlecoff went there, and they had a history of a lot of state championships and producing a lot of good players. So I went there, and I almost missed, like I said, I almost missed the tryout, but I stumbled across that and made the team, and kind of just kept practicing. And I was still playing basketball even in high school, and I finally gave that up. But every day I would just kind of go behind my house, and I had a little route that I would play. I would play 5, 6, 2, 3, 4, and then just a little loop that came back to my house. So every night when the weather was good, I would go up there and practice, and I just started seeing my game start to improve. And then I guess the AJGA tour really didn't get started until about 1986, so that was my junior year in high school. And so because of all the other things I was doing, it was basketball, and just I never really traveled that much for golf. I didn't play a lot of these big time tournaments. I played a few. I won my state high school a couple times, which was a big achievement. But it wasn't really until I would say later, even earlier in my college career, that I felt like I was going to try to go on and do something really special in the game. But I was going to Kentucky, to be honest. That's where I was going to go. And then just a few things changed, and I decided to go to Indiana. And I think at that point, I wasn't sure whether or not I wanted to be a professional golfer or if I wanted to be a pilot. I mean, I was probably 99% sure that I wanted to be a pilot like my dad. I'd already got my pilot's license by the time I was 18 and was kind of going in that direction. And then just some things changed in college.
Going to the University of Indiana, I mean, great university, great school. How was that experience for you? And then during the college experience, did your game get really, really good versus even other college players where you said, yes, I really think I can try to go pro from what I'm seeing out here?
Well, so when I went to IU, I think I was a decent player. The golf coach that we had, his name was Bob Fitch. He was a great man. He was a former special operations person in the Navy, and was a physics major. Was a big time football player at the University of Minnesota. And although he knew golf and he knew the physics of the game, it really wasn't until the start of my junior year when Sam Carmichael took over. Sam had played the tour from, I believe, 1962 to 1969, and then he got sick. I think he got hepatitis and was basically forced off the tour. He just couldn't compete with his health. But I was thinking about leaving college, leaving Indiana, and going to Mississippi State. And Mississippi State had a great program. Was in the South. Was fairly close to home, and they played a great schedule and had some friends of mine that I grew up playing with. They went to school there. And then when I found out that Sam was going to take over the men's program, he was already coaching the women, the ladies team, and they had a great team. They had Michelle Redmond is probably their, I would say most famous, for lack of a better word, golfer who played a great career in the LPGA. But Sam was just renowned in Indiana to be an incredible teacher, a very gifted communicator, I think, with this. That's why I stayed. That's why Sam is the reason I stayed at IU. And Sam is the reason that I went on to play professional golf, because he kind of gave me the confidence and the encouragement that I needed to really get out there and compete. He had played the tour, and who better to learn from than somebody that's experienced all that. So that was my reason for staying. And I had a pretty good junior year. I was had won 3 tournaments and was all Big Ten and things like that. But it was my senior year. I won 5 times and finished second several other times. And I was a first-team All-American. I won the Big Ten individual, and we won as a team. had the lowest stroke average. So there were a lot of things that were kind of going my way that year. And again, it was just all because of Sam, just the work ethic, I think, that he instilled in me. But circling back again to my college experience, I mean, it was good. I mean, I had a good experience, but it was really geared more for me to get on to playing a professional sport. I think in the last couple of years, I realized that it wasn't that I was antisocial. It's just that I had decided mentally that I was going to try to give this a shot, and I pretty much gave all my time to golf, and I wasn't as social with my teammates. I mean, I think I was a good teammate, but I just recognized early that I needed to, if I was going to become good, I needed to take advantage of the time that I had with Sam in the 2 years that I was with him. So that's kind of what I did. And again, I continued my work with Sam even beyond, the college years. And heck, I had a chipping lesson with Sam 2 weeks before I won the PGA. So he just really instilled in me the drive and I think the confidence to go on and be a professional.
So you turned pro after graduating from Indiana, and then what was your pathway kind of getting to the PGA Tour qualifying school? Because I know you graduated in 1993, and so did you play many tours? And then once you hit Q school for the first time, what's that pressure like?
Okay, well, I graduated in December of 1991. I spent an extra semester in school, and then my initial kind of stint as a professional golfer was in South Africa. I left, it wasn't long after Christmas of 1991 that I went, got on a plane and flew to South Africa to play the Sunshine Tour. And I spent 6 weeks over there, and it was a big adjustment, being that far away from home and, really playing with guys. It's the first time I ever met a guy named Ernie Els. Ernie Els was playing there, Retief Goosen. There were a lot of South African players that I had heard of that, I was able to compete against. But that was my first experience in professional golf, and that lasted, 6 weeks. I got back and promptly went to Florida, lived in Florida with another guy from Memphis named Doug Barron, who played the tour for a couple of years. And we lived in Orlando. We played many tours, and it was a Tommy Armour tour back then. And then missed out at the tour school in 1992, so kind of did the same thing. And I played on what was called the T.C. Jordan Tour, which became the Hooters Tour. And again, just playing tournaments, just traveling around, playing 4-day events. Each of the events had a cut, so they were trying to kind of mirror themselves as a way to give guys experience to playing, legitimate, professional golf at the highest level. And then finally, in that year of 1993, I had to go to all three stages. I went to Murfreesboro. Second stage was in West Palm Beach, which I won. I won the second stage, and then the final stage in December of 93 was a 6-rounder out in Palm Desert. And we played 2 courses out there. And with my father caddying for me, all 3 stages, I made it through. I shot a 67 on the last day and got my PGA Tour card on the number. And, I think a lot of people believe that my fondest memory of professional golf is the win that I had at the PGA, and certainly that is kind of near the top. But sharing my experience of getting my PGA Tour card for the first time with my dad caddying, might top that in terms of memory, in just terms of just family, because I owed so much to he and my mom for, the sacrifices that they made for me traveling around and taking me to these tournaments before I could drive. So it was a memory that sticks with me to this day. I mean, I remember the last hole, I hit a 6-iron and the pin was on the front left. I think it was a Nicklaus private course, and I was finishing on the front because I had kind of a poor 5th round, and all the better players, the better scorers, were finishing on the 18th hole. And I hit a shot in there about 8 or 10 feet, something like that. And I go walking around the water to mark my ball, and I look to give my dad my golf ball to have him clean it. And he's nowhere to be found, and he's way across the green. And I look, and I was playing with Tommy Armour III that day, and he had his arm wrapped around my dad. And I yelled at my dad. I said, "Dad, get the hell over here. What are you doing?" And he came over, and I gave him the ball, and I said, "What are you doing over there?" I said, "I got to make this putt." And he says, "Look, Tommy just told me that if you two-putt, you get your PGA Tour card." So I kind of gave him a pat on the back, and I said, "Okay, I'll forget it," kind of thing, you know. And I went on, and of course I missed the putt. I was so nervous at that point that I just lagged it down there and tapped in, and kind of the rest is history. But that was kind of my first. That was my arrival to the PGA Tour.
And then you go and play professional golf, and I see in 1998 you win the Singapore Open. And my question is, to get that first big win on a pretty significant tour, what does that do for your confidence? And then you followed up in 99 with a win on which was the Nike Tour back then at the Greensboro Open. So you start to see your stride, hitting. How much confidence does that start to give a golfer once you start winning on a regular basis on some pretty good tours?
Well, a lot, but I mean, the whole reason that I even went to Asia in the first place was because of the poor results and the bad play that I had really from 94 all the way through 97. I mean, I had my tour card in 1994. I got it back in 96 for the 97 year. And for some reason, I just wasn't able to kind of get over the mental hurdles that exist out there, and that's playing in front of a lot of people. I've always been somewhat of an introvert. But so my path to Asia was due to this poor play. And the manager that I had at the time, and a good friend of mine named Charlie Wee, who's played the tour for a long time, said, "Look, Shaun, hey, let's just get out of the United States. Let's go off somewhere where you can kind of forget about your experiences and everything." And that's what I did. So I went off to the Asian Tour School in Malaysia and made it through and was able to play a full schedule over there. And again, like you said, that was kind of the key, is to trying to figure out how to win golf tournaments. And I played well. And the Singapore Open was a huge kind of feather in my cap, I guess, because there were a lot of great players. I look at Carlos Franco, Todd Hamilton, Brant Jobe. There were a lot of guys that were playing that had a lot of success, on that side of the planet, and again, when you're playing golf, you just need to play. It doesn't matter where you're playing, what tour you're playing. I mean, if you're willing to work hard and put in the work, you're gonna reap the benefits. And that was the whole reason I went over there, is to try to find a place to play and play some really good competition. So I got out of there and I went back to the tour school, and I didn't make it through, but I got back onto which was then the Nike Tour, and I mean, I was playing pretty well. I had a pretty consistent year, and I won in Greensboro at Sedgefield, which is where they play the PGA Tour event now. So, and then I finished ninth on the money list that year, and then got on the tour. And in 2000, pretty much been a member ever since. I mean, I've certainly discounted the last few years. I mean, I'm on the backside of all this, this long journey, but I, just fond memories. It's just a process. It's certainly, it's not, I would say it's not the kind of prototypical way that many think that guys get on tour and they're successful right away. I mean, you look at Jordan Spieth. I mean, he didn't really struggle coming out of his early career after college, and it was just a process that I look back on. I wouldn't change for the world. I mean, I don't really enjoy being called, a journeyman pro, because I think a lot of people think that as being a negative. But the experiences that I've had, the friendships that I've made and still continue to maintain, with some of the European Tour players like Darren Clark and Lee Westwood and these guys that played in Europe, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I've played in 35 countries, obviously include the 3 in North America, but I've been to a lot of places and I've experienced a lot of great things, a lot of great cultures, and I wouldn't change it.
So you start playing the tour again full time in 2000 after your 99 season on the Nike Tour. And from that generation of golfers, what was the biggest difference you saw back then between the guys in the PGA Tour and, say, one level below, which was the Nike Tour then?
Well, I think it was just for one, the golf courses were, I would say, were a lot more difficult. You're still traveling around by car, by airplane, however you're getting there, and so that was all the same. But when you got there and you get onto the first tee, and there's just thousands of people out there. The courses are lined with ropes. I mean, it's pretty the courses are a lot more difficult. The greens are a lot quicker. The courses were a lot longer. There were a lot of things, the equipment manufacturers were trying to get you to play new stuff. Here's our new driver. Here's our new ball. Here's our new irons. I mean, it was overwhelming at first. And I think that's really what why it took me so long to get out there, because I got caught up in some of the things away from, the 18 holes of tournament golf, and it just distracted me. And I got kind of caught up in this loop of this disease, I call it, of getting free stuff and trying a new driver every week. But the players are all, they're all the same. When you reach that level, there's usually one or two little things that separate, and it could be putting, but the majority of it is mental, and it's being able to handle, all of the things that are going on while you're trying to play golf. It's the autograph seekers. It's managing your practice time, managing your schedule. I mean, do I play 3 weeks in a row like I used to do? I mean, how many tournaments do I play before I'm burnt out? I mean, how much time do I practice, during the day when I'm there? I mean, it's just, what do I do in my off weeks? How much do I practice? It's just a lot of things. And there's also the desire to want to do it. I think there are a lot of players now that could probably do this for a living, but for some reason they're not comfortable traveling. They're not comfortable in the risk. There's a huge risk involved. I mean, you go to college and you come out of school and you think you're going to play professional golf, and all of a sudden it doesn't work out. What do you do? I mean, what do you fall back on? So there's just a lot of things that are kind of eating at you a little bit inside to kind of take you away from, wow, is this something I really want to do? Am I good enough to do this? And it just takes a little while to kind of get your, you're a green kid when you come out there, and it's hard to, I guess, give yourself the confidence, I think, that you can do it, that you can play at the highest level. And I struggle with that. Being somewhat of an introvert was difficult for me, because I wasn't the best at going out and, really introducing myself to some of these players, asking to play practice rounds with some of the best players. All of us that were just new on tour seemed like we were always playing together, and we were all pretty equal, and we needed to get better. And in order to do that, you got to play with guys that have the experience to do it. And it just took me a while before I felt confident enough to start doing those things.
So with the 2000 season, obviously you have Tiger Woods, who had, I would argue, the best season ever in golf. And since you were out there at that time, did you ever get to play with him during that season, or how close did you see that up? Or how close were you to doing it, to seeing what that season actually looked like, or how good was he up close when you were playing out there?
Well, I think we're all fans of the game too, even though we play it for a living. So we all knew kind of who this kid was. I mean, I remember when he first came out, and I think Milwaukee was his first tournament, I think, that he played, and there was a lot of news surrounding his play. He was a minority golfer also, which was a huge news story. For someone, we've seen, Lee Elder kind of pave the way. And, I think all of us are kind of like, who is this kid? And, when he gets on the tour, he won't have that much success. It's just, there's too many difficult things. And we were all proved wrong pretty quickly. But, yeah, I played with Tiger a couple of times. And I don't know if it was 2000 or 2001. I think I played with him in the last round at Torrey Pines. And it was just incredible to watch. I mean, I still kind of marvel at the places that he played from, just in terms of just length and his ability to think his way around the golf course. But you try not to get caught up too much in that. You're trying to focus on what you're doing. But it didn't take long to realize that you were an inferior player to him. And so as I look back on these days, I look at it as kind of a badge of honor, I guess, that I was able to see a guy play in arguably one of the best one of the best players to ever play the game.
So back to your game, you're trending the right way. So in 2002, you double what you made the previous season. You're trending up to the 2003 season. How confident were you as you kept getting better and better? And next conversation will be what you did at the 2003 PGA Championship. But obviously the trend line is going the right direction in your game professionally at that point.
Yeah, there were some times, I think even in 2000, 2001, that I had some really good events, but I just didn't get through on Sunday. I had some poor scores on Sunday. And again, I think it was just kind of nerves. But it was in 2002 at the BC Open, which was in Endicott, New York. It's the event that offset the British Open, so it was an opposite field event. And I had I believe I had a three-shot. I think it was a three-shot lead. I was 19 under through 3 days. I was actually looking to break Jeff Sluman's scoring record, and I came down to the last few holes, and I missed about a 5 or 6 foot putt for birdie for par on 17, and I had to make birdie on 18, which I bogeyed. So I bogeyed the last 2 holes. Instead of winning or finishing a playoff, I finished third, and it was a tournament that I felt like I obviously should have won, and but I felt really good about what I was doing. It was terribly disappointing for a long time, and that sat with me for a good while, because a good friend of mine that I grew up playing junior golf with, Spike McCroy, went out and shot 65 and beat me. And but my golf game was, like you said, was trending in the right direction. I felt good about myself. I felt good about what I was doing. I was comfortable in the locker room and basically being accepted by everyone. And we kind of led into 2003, and always the goals are to win. I mean, you want to set your standards. You want to set the bar pretty high. You need goals, but I think in the beginning I set mine just too high, and I didn't really want to go through the process of, making the cuts, and I don't know. There's just a lot to learn. And so, by 2003, I just felt like I belonged. And I think that was really the biggest barrier that I faced, in my career in the beginning, was trying to get over that hump.
So we go to the 2003 PGA Championship. It's at Oak Hill. It's a historic venue. When you got to that golf course, did the course fit your eye immediately? Were you extremely comfortable on it? Did it one of those courses where you could just see the shots and it just made sense?
It was. I enjoy, and I always enjoyed playing tree-lined golf courses. I think it was just something I grew up around Memphis, so that's just what we had. I play here, I play in Nashville or Knoxville, around the state and all these events. I just seemed to really like those types of courses. And that was my first PGA. I had played 2 majors prior, 2 U.S. Opens, one in 99 at Pinehurst and one in 2001 at Southern Hills. But when I played, I first of all, I was just excited to be there. I was excited to have played well enough to get into the PGA, and I think it was a pretty big accomplishment. There's a lot of ways to get into the PGA now. Back then, it was certainly winning certain tournaments. But finishing top 70 on the year's money list from PGA to PGA is how I got in. And so I was just excited to be playing, to be honest with you. I had no expectations I was going to win. Again, I just basically had set my standards, I think, too low. I really gave myself an opportunity, and it's just maybe it's just easier on your ego if you approach it that way. I don't know, but I was playing well. It was just about hitting the fairways. It was probably the most penal rough that I'd seen or that I'd played in. And if you missed the fairway, it was pretty much chip out rough. And I think the firmness of the golf course, kind of the difficulty of the driving, there's a lot of movement, off the tee, just little subtle angles that Donna Ross put in there to make it look like it's just a very difficult fairway to hit. And they were. But no, I had no expectations that I was going to really do much. And to be honest, I'd have been happy just making the cut. And that's really the way I approached it. My wife was coming up. My wife Stephanie was 6 months pregnant. It was going to be a great way for she and I to kind of get out together and enjoy another major championship and, be a part of, the PGA of America and Rochester and all those great things that you're going to experience. And, the pressure certainly wasn't on me. I mean, Tiger Woods was there. It was a great field. And I think just being a part of it was, I guess, as I said in an interview once before, it was good enough for me just to be a part of it.
So you find yourself after 2 days, you're in the lead. And how is that pressure not only leading a PGA Tour event that you're trying to win for the first time, but throw on top of it, it's a major championship. So how did you deal with that? And were you comfortable, or is it almost good you're not comfortable because you're so excited to get out there and see what Saturday's round is going to lead to?
Well, the hardest part is when you're outside the ropes. I mean, I remember, I birdied the last hole on Friday night. I was one of the last groups to finish, and I immediately finished, signed my card, and some PGA of America media people were there. Julius Mason was there to assist me into the media center, and I must have been an hour and a half. And I was worried about my wife, and like I said, she was hungry, she was not feeling too well, and so I had a lot of stuff kind of going on, and wasn't too bad on Friday, but when I got back to the hotel and I walked in, there was a lot of people there, and I had my golf clubs, and everybody knew who I was. Everybody knew I was leading the tournament. I was trying to get dinner. I think we just got room service that night. And then I had a tough time sleeping. I was thinking about all the answers that I'd given in my media, because I hadn't really gotten an opportunity to be involved in a press conference or a media event like that one. And so, I watched myself on the Golf Channel. I'm like, was that a stupid answer? I mean, how was I playing? I certainly watched a lot of the highlights of, my swing. Everything was looking good there. But I felt good. I felt really good. And that's where I had to keep coming back to was that, I'm playing well. It's not like I'm, I've just made a bunch of putts and I've hit it in the trees and the balls have bounced out into the fairway. I mean, I was playing great golf. And I think Saturday was going to be the big day for me. And they always talk about it being moving day. And, I only had one place to move, and that was backwards. And, I got off and I hit a bad shot off the tee on Saturday. It's a very uncomfortable shot for me. The way that the hole plays and the way the wind was blowing that particular day. So, I had to get out there and playing. I mean, like I said, the hardest part is outside the ropes, when there's not much going on. And, but I still felt good about what I was doing. And, that just kind of continued on. I had a great partner. I was playing with Billy Andrade, and Billy was trying to win his first major. And I certainly knew who he was. We maybe played together once or twice up to that point. But one thing I will say about Billy is he and Ziggy, his caddy, were the best, probably the best partnership, / competitor that I could have had, I think, because they were very encouraging. In the beginning, it was all about, hey, I'm focused on my game. There was not a whole lot of conversation going on. And then towards the end, I was making a lot of birdies, and he and his caddy were unbelievably complimentary and pushing me along and kind of giving me encouragement for the next day. And I took a lot from that.
So you shoot 69 on that Saturday, and you're in the lead again. So now you're going through that whole process of sleeping on the lead for Sunday to win a major. So you've done it now on Friday night. How does Saturday night go? And then how excited are you to get out there on Sunday to see what happens?
Yeah, well, by now I know I only have one more day. I mean, it's going to be a make or break kind of a Sunday for me. And as I said earlier to you, and I was basically just sick of letting Sunday, my nerves and everything affect the way that I played the game. I think in the end I was just tired of losing. And that's kind of the way I approached it. I've watched my interview from Saturday night quite a bit, actually, and over the years. And somebody asked me a similar question about handling that. And I said, well, look, obviously I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you how I'm going to play, but I feel pretty good. And that's how I summed everything up in my, that was the last thing I said out of my mouth. before I got up on Saturday night from the media tent. And I went back, and as my wife was saying, she goes, you're just playing too well. I mean, there's a lot of things that are going to happen tomorrow, and focus on your game and keep playing the same way you're doing, and everything's going to be fine. I mean, it's so easy to say, but that is what you have to do. I can't, I knew I couldn't control the other players. I could just kind of go out and continue to hit the fairways and hope that I would continue to make the putts that I'd been making. And that's what I did. And I think another thing was that the golf course was so difficult that I wasn't worried about someone's coming out and shooting 5-6 under. I just didn't see that round out there. With Sunday pins, Sunday pressure. Again, it was a bright, sunny, hot day with bouncy fairways. Now, meanwhile, there's not gotten a whole lot of water on the greens. And I went out and I got off to a great start. I birdied the first hole, and that calmed me down pretty quickly. But, the walk in from the car, the parking lot on Sunday morning, to get into the clubhouse, I got there way early, wanted to have some lunch, and there was a lot of people in there. Ernie Els was in there, and I got there, and when I got to my locker, there was a note on my locker, and that I still have, and it was written by Lauren Roberts. And Lauren and I have gotten to be good friends. He's also a Memphian now, and the letter basically just said, "Hey, you're playing well. Go out and get what you deserve. Bring a win back home to Memphis." There was more to it than that, but that's kind of the gist of it, and that made me feel really good. And a lot of people just wished me well, but golly, it was nerve-wracking having to sit there and listen to the coverage, when I'm teeing off at 3:00 and TNT is going to early coverage, and the guys are like, well, Shaun Micheel's never been in this position before, and I doubt he's going to be able to hold up. He held up yesterday, but he bogeyed the last 3 holes, and there was just a lot of negativity, and I was starting to feel some of that, and I just finally had to quit watching it. Like I said, it was just it was a difficult morning. And, I was so anxious to finally get out and get off and start playing that, that's where I was most comfortable.
So then when you get out there on that first tee and the Wanamaker is sitting there, and I'm assuming you have to look at it with all of the history of what you're playing for. Is it hard to then just say, okay, let's turn this off and focus on one shot at a time? And then on top of it, you're playing against a guy in your group who's playing some tremendous golf at that time, which is Chad Campbell, who is still an excellent player. So is it hard to say we're just going to do what we're supposed to do, which is the one shot at a time and play with the golf course with everything that's in front of you? Chad's right there, the trophy's sitting there. How difficult is that to say, okay, let's just do business and play our one shot at a time and play my game?
Chad and I were very, very, very. It was a good pairing again. I had a good pairing on Saturday, and I had a good pairing on Sunday. Chad's pretty quiet, as am I, and each of us. I just knew that he was as nervous as I was, and I think that kind of made me feel good to kind of get going. I was, to be honest with you, I wasn't really worried about the tournament. I was more worried about not falling apart and not choking the tournament away, I think. And so that kept me kind of hyper focused, I suppose. I never think about one shot at a time. I just know that's how the game is played. I can't play I can't play the second hole before I play the first hole. And so I just got up there. I'd gone through my yardage book the night before, and I knew about kind of where the pins were going to be. And I kind of played the golf course numerous times and put myself in different scenarios, where I would play to if I hit it here. I had certain places that I felt like I would miss the ball on each of the holes. And so I made sure I had plenty of, my targets were specific, and when I got to the range a little bit early, I was hitting the ball in the center of the club face, which I thought was a good sign. And so when I got out there, and I got to the first tee and I saw that trophy there, I did think about what it'd be like to have my name on it, to be able to hold that trophy at the end, because I was going to overcome so many things. It wasn't just about winning my first tournament or winning a major championship. It was all the years before of like beating my head against the wall, wondering why am I shooting 75 on Sunday, and do I want to be an airline pilot like my dad? I mean, I almost gave the game up several times. I mean, I think we all go through that. So it wasn't just me thinking that, but I mean, I was so sick and tired of losing that I wasn't gonna let that happen. I may have gotten beaten that day, but I wasn't gonna beat myself, and I wasn't gonna throw it away. I was gonna play smart, and I had a specific game plan in mind. And again, I was putting well, and I think when you're putting well, that just makes things a lot easier. And I was thinking well. I hadn't gotten mad the entire week. I've gone back and I've looked at the videos. I walked a certain way. I didn't snap at my caddy. I didn't do anything. I just was out managing my game. And I think I was probably as level-headed of a player that week than maybe I ever was or even ever have been since.
So on the 14th hole that day, you take the lead. You played, and I'm going off, I don't have this exactly, but did you take a driver towards the green or hit it right up next to it? And now you're sitting up 3 strokes on the 14th, right, after that hole's over?
I did, and on Friday, I think it was Friday's round. It's a short hole. The tee sits down kind of low, and the green is elevated. I think it's probably 285, 290, maybe to the green, something like that. And the second day, I laid up. I hit a 2-iron or 3-iron or something out there in the fairway, and I promptly hit it over the green and then chipped that over the green. And I thought, well, I'm not doing this. I'm just going to take a driver and hit it about the green, and surely I can get it on and maybe make a birdie. And that was my thought. I mean, it's certainly not eagle. I mean, I was just trying to get up around the green. So we both hit drive, and I hit it right at the green, and it just kind of bounced up, rolled onto the right fringe, and then I hit a poor putt. I had a long putt, but I had left it about 6 or 7 feet short, and then I made it. And Chad, his drive, he was up first because he made an unbelievable birdie on the hole prior, and he hit a bunker shot where he just basically duffed it. He had about a 25-yard bunker shot, and he hit it about 4 yards. And then his next chip, he hit it so hard it was going to go over the back of the green, but it hit the flag stick and bounced about 7 feet. He ultimately missed that putt. But when I made that putt, that was the hole that I knew it was going to win on. And I went up 3. And then the next hole came, and I realized, well, maybe I'm not going to win. So there was a quick change there on the next hole when I 3-putted, and Chad made a really difficult, probably a putt that broke 10 to 12 feet, and it was about 40 feet in length. So that kind of brought me back.
So now your last 3 holes you're going down on this, and you're up 3, and now you're up 1. So does your mindset change that you're still going to play aggressive? You got to go after this win at this point. I'm assuming that kind of I'm going to win this thing to, oh my gosh, Chad just made a bomb, has to kind of play with your mind a little bit.
Well, he did, and then I came out on the next hole and I made a bomb on 16 and got back up. I think by 2, I guess, and then I hit what I thought was a perfect drive on 17. It's a really, really difficult kind of and it's a long hole too. I think it's playing just about 500 yards, and it's uphill, and it kind of works to the right. But anyway, I missed the fairway there by, I would say, a foot off the first cut, and I had to chip out. And Chad hit it down the middle as usual, and knocked it on the green and missed his birdie putt, and I made bogey. So I go into 18 with a 1-shot lead, and it's a driver off the tee. I mean, I could have hit a 3-wood, I suppose, but I kind of felt like put me back a little bit too far, and he hit first and hit up the right side of the fairway, and I got up next, and I hit up the left side, and I thought what was kind of an unlucky break because the first bounce, it looked like it bounced left and it was going to go into the rough, and then I finally got a little bit of a late bounce to the right that kept it in the first cut, and I walked up to that shot. But before that, and this is something that's important. It's important to me, and something I'll never forget. Chad and I walked off the 18th tee, and the cart path goes from right, and you have to walk over the cart path. And as I was walking over the cart path, I heard a lady to the right. I wish I could meet her. I don't know who she was. She yelled, "It's nice to see some up and comers." That's all she said, and almost 15 years later, I remember like it was yesterday. It really made me feel good. I don't know if Chad heard it. I've never asked him if he heard that comment, but it's definitely something that I remember. And anyway, so I got up there to hit my second shot, and we were about the same distance on opposite sides of the fairway. And on Tuesday, I played the practice round, and I was over where Chad was, and I had basically the same yardage. I think I had 173 or so to the flag in the practice round, with a little bit of wind in, and it was about half club, 3/4 of a club, and I came up right on the front of the green. And so that's the first thing I said to my caddy Bob. I said we had the same exact yardage on Tuesday, and he gave me the yardage. I said that to him, and I pulled the 7-iron because we knew exactly what it was, and it was a perfect number. It was 161 to the front. So I knew that even if I hit my 7-iron just a little bit, I was going to get to the front. I knew that if I flushed it and I caught a little bit of a flyer out of that first cut, I had about, probably 7 or 8 behind it. So what was 174, I had 182 to the back. I wasn't worried about that. It was just a stock full 7-iron. And I aimed it just a little bit right of the flag. I mean, not too much. I mean, the pin wasn't like it was 3 from the left. It was probably 6 or 7 yards, if not more, to the left of the pin. So I really wasn't worried about missing left. I just saw that yellow flag kind of just laying limp there, and I just kind of went at it. I mean, but to hit a shot 2 or 3 inches from the hole in the last hole it's probably not how I was thinking. I was going to hit it that close, but everything just kind of the stars aligned, I guess.
Could you tell the ball was that close from your vantage point when you hit that shot?
No, I couldn't. And it's funny. My daughter likes to look up videos of me, and unfortunately there aren't a whole lot of me when I play great golf. There's a few, and one of them is a video that it shows the shot, and it's commented by Jim Nance, and Jim says something like, David, because David Faraday was out there along with us, does he have any idea how close he was to the hole? And David says no, and they immediately panned to me because behind me was a cameraman. And I looked down, and I asked him twice, and if you look at this video, you can read my lips. I looked, and I said, how close is that ball? And then I point, and I said, how close is that ball, or where's that ball, something like that. So you can see that I had no idea where that was. And it's a pretty big hill. It was a little bit of an uphill shot, and I could see the ball sitting there. It wasn't like it was a blind shot, but I didn't know if it was a little bit short or a little bit long. I mean, we've all played where your ball is on the right, it's right in line with the flag. You just don't know where it is in relation to the cup. And when I walked up that hill, I mean, it's 40 feet up to the top of that, to the green, and I saw it sitting there. I just kind of, I don't know. I mean, I just had a lot of, I was I wasn't too emotional, but inside I was kind of just relieved that I couldn't miss a 2-inch putt.
Well, excuse me, exactly. I mean, this is like a huge moment. Not only did you hit, one of the greatest shots in major championship history, so now you have your first win on the PGA Tour. You're going to be a major champion, and you, like I said, hit a shot that 50 years, 100 years from now, people will still remember that 7-iron shot. So how long does that take once it's sort of over to realize what you've accomplished, what you've done, and on multiple levels you're a part of history?
Well, when I walked up and I was thinking about it, I was just kind of walking around the side of the green because Chad still had a good opportunity to finish solo second. I thought, to be honest, I thought, well, I finally won my first PGA Tour event. And it wasn't until a few minutes later that I realized that PGA Tour event was a major championship. So that's the first thing I thought I was getting my first win. And I don't know, I didn't think too much about really about the shot. I mean, I kind of got up, but I did see when I was standing off to the side, my wife was wearing a bright pink blouse the entire day. And that was something that I kind of found her probably every hole during the day. I mean, I made it a point to, when things were going rough or if I was getting a little bit out of rhythm or whatever, I was going to look for her walking with that pink blouse. And I pretty much saw it all day. and that was really when I could see her over there. And I've known Stephanie. I'm 49. I've known Stephanie since I was 13 years old. So we've known each other a long time, and she's been as supportive of me. Even in my junior golf days, she didn't know a whole lot about golf, but she would watch me play some, and so she had been a part of all of the struggles from 1994, 1996, 97, 2000. She had been a part of all of it. And I think for both of us to kind of still be supporting one another and encouraging each other, I just couldn't. She was emotional. I started getting emotional, and it was to have her there, and was a moment that I will never forget.